Okay, so let's review what we've learned so far about molar mass. We're going to extend this concept to compounds. All right. Oops. So, what do we know about molar mass so far? Well, we know that molar mass is the mass of 1 mole of an element or a compound. This is also the average atomic mass that's on the periodic table. It's the decimal number. Okay, it's the same number, but molar mass is going to have the units grams per mole. So make sure that you write that the units for molar mass are grams per mole. This number comes from the periodic table. That number is a 1. All right, and always remember that in 1 mole, 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd. I don't know why that's like that. It should just be a 2, right? So 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd atoms of carbon is 1 mole of carbon, and the mass of that is 12.01. This is the number that would be on the periodic table. So, again, here's that 12.01 periodic table. Oops. Okay, sulfur 32.07. Silver 107.9. These might be slightly different than what's on your periodic table. It depends where they get their numbers from. All right, so looking up, what is the molar mass for 1 mole of potassium ions? Looking at potassium here, we can see it's 39.1. And then tin, SN, looking here, I can't read that. Hopefully you can read yours. 118.71. Okay. Okay, so let's see. There we go. 39.1 grams for potassium, 108.7 grams per mole for tin. So if we have a compound, how do we go and calculate what the mass of 1 mole of that compound would be? Well, from the formula, we know that there is calcium, and I have 1 mole of that calcium. The atomic mass from the periodic table for calcium is 40.08 grams per mole. 1 mole, so I have 40.08 grams per mole for the calcium that's in this compound. Maybe I won't do that. Okay, and then chlorine is the second element. I have 2 moles. Each mole is 35.45 grams per mole. I have 2 moles of that, so it's 70.90 grams for the chlorine that's in that compound. So the molar mass for calcium chloride is 110.98, these two values added, and it is grams per mole. So for every 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd formula units of this ionic compound, which is CaCl2, I will have 110.98 grams per mole. So this is a formula unit, which is the smallest whole number ratio of ions in an ionic compound. Should be an N. Okay. So K3PO4. We're going to use the same process. I have potassium, phosphorus, oxygen. From the formula, I have 3 moles of potassium for every 1 mole of this ionic compound. Phosphorus, for every 1 mole of this compound, I have 1 mole of phosphorus. For every 1 mole of this compound, I have 4 moles of oxygen. Atomic mass for potassium is 39.1 grams per mole. Potassium is 30.97 grams per mole. Oxygen is 16 grams per mole. So the total mass of each of those elements in the compound, multiply the number of moles times the molar mass. This should actually technically say molar mass. Add them up, 212.3 grams. I would actually write that as 27 grams per mole. I realized that this should have a 0 here. So that's a mistake. Okay, so what does 1 mole look like? 1 mole of sulfur, iron, sodium chloride. This is potassium dichromate, and this is a sugar. Okay. Just to give you an idea of what 1 mole looks like, we did look at these in class. Please ask to see those samples again if you need to. Okay, so pause the screencast, figure out what the molar mass is of each of these, and then come back, we'll check the answers. So here are the answers. The one tricky thing might be, if we look at this aluminum hydroxide, remember that if I have more than one polyatomic, I have to put the parentheses and then the subscript. What this means is I have 3 moles of oxygen and 3 moles of hydrogen. 3 moles of oxygen, 3 moles of hydrogen. So you have to take that subscript times anything that's inside the parentheses. Okay. So molar mass of copper 2 chloride dihydrate. First you have to come up with the formula, and we don't do a whole lot of work with these, but you do need to be familiar with them, and we will do an experiment with one. So copper 2 chloride, that tells me that copper has a +2 charge. Chlorine from the periodic table is a -1, so the formula would be CuCl2. Di, as you know, means 2. Hydrate is water. So we would write this formula as this. This does not mean multiply. Does not. Okay. It just means that it's a hydrate. Don't ask me why they chose that symbol. I don't know. Right? So when we find the molar mass, I have 1 copper, I have 2 chlorides, I have hydrogen in my compound, 2 water molecules, each water has 2, so that's actually 4, and then I have oxygen, I have 2 of those. Copper is from the periodic table, 63.55 grams. 2 chlorines, that's 2 times 35.45 grams. And I guess these are really per mole. Per mole, I have 1 mole. This is 2 moles. Moles times 1.01 grams per mole. And then I have 2 moles of O times 16.00 grams per mole. Do the math. I don't have it done, so I will do it with you. I get 170.44 grams per mole for copper 2 chloride dihydrate. Okay, so learning check. Take a minute, answer this question. Hopefully you got that right. 309, that was answer 3. And that's the end of this screencast.